Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the 30th episode of the No Punches Pulled podcast. 30 weeks, boys, we've been going at it now. Absolutely loving it, just like it was week one. Shame we haven't got a Riyadh season, better be a Bibble 2 card to talk about this week. But look, in fact, do you know what? Before we go, it's been a bit flat, hasn't it, the last couple of weeks? Do you not think? Liam, you made a great point, actually, the other day.
For once.
Yeah, it's first for everything. Feels like we're losing an injured fighter every fight card at the minute, doesn't it? There's always something going on.
Pretty much.
It's mental. Yeah. And this comes from the back end of last year as well. You think you even go back to the Usyk Fury 2 card. We lost 2 fighters off of that close. I know Dennis McCann, well, we don't know where Dennis McCann is, but that was one. And then we lost... who else? Madrimov moved off of that, didn't he? To wait till February 22nd. Yeah. So it's just every
and Dubois or
Joyce, Dillian White.
Okatai's original opponent. Okatai's original opponent.
Yeah.
Yeah, mate, it's a mental time, and it's happening. Obviously, the other discipline we follow with the MMA as well. The amount of UFC fights that are losing at the last minute. It's a strange time, isn't it? And I mean, look, I still think we're on the come down from February the 22nd in a way. That was such a high. That night delivered even more than we expected. Then we went into the Donovan Crocker fight and obviously the Tank controversy in his fight. And it's kind of been flat for a couple of weeks, but get through this week. Next week, we've obviously got the Ryan and Mayer rematch and Flynn and Vong finally touch wood, get it on. And then it starts picking up into April, doesn't it?
Yeah, April insane.
It's off to the races then. I think there's a bit of a lull and then it just... I mean, don't get me wrong. For MMA fans, it's a big weekend. This coming weekend and will be, made up to finally have a British fight card that's on at British time. It'd be nice to watch. But in terms of boxing, it's a bit of a lull, but they're building up. There's, they're building up to a massive spring summer. So, we'll be watching along non-stop as of week after next. Really, it starts to get starts to hot up, doesn't it?
All sorts going on. Evening to Humble Apple Crumble. Thanks for joining us as always, DJ Pat. Hope you're well, my friend. Fight week down under them, boys. We may as well start there. Look, I thought about maybe we'll talk about it, but I can't be bothered talking about Nick Ball kicking Dehenny. If I'm being honest with you, that's done to me now. It wasn't a great weekend of action, was it? Ball and Inoue. I'm sick of talking about that as well. So let's just get into what goes on this week. I think we'll have a little preview of the Canelo undercard that was announced yesterday. I think it was. We'll have a little chat about that to round off after the previews. We've got the Man Mitch TV in the building.
There he is. I'll see you Saturday for lunch, brother.
There you go. JFT's lunch date for Saturday. Right then. So Daud Yordan, former opponent of Jay's mate Anthony Crolla, he was meant to be fighting George Kambosos Jr. and what was probably a decent test for Kambosos on Saturday. It was, We know he's going to be facing Richardson Hitchens if he gets through on the weekend, but Yordan's now out. He's facing Jake Wyllie, so he's the Australian super lightweight champion. I was going to say of the world, then no, it's the super lightweight champion of Australia. He's 24 years old, 16-1, 15 knockouts, so he can bang a little bit, but he's only fought really on the regional scene. So as Kambosos said, it's his rocky moment. He's giving the kid his rocky moment on Saturday. He shouldn't have too much problems with it, if we're being honest. He's obviously came in and saved the show, but I'll get your thoughts quickly before I do, boys. Evening, Mr. Dan Evans. Hope you're well, my friend. What are your thoughts on Stram? Oh, no, we can't talk about that. Humble Apple Crumble will be here all night. Stramble was a weird one for me. But yes, boys, Jake Wyllie stepping in for Daud Yordan. We'll be watching it Saturday morning, no doubt, because we never get fights on at a good time, so we'll cash it. Maybe Jay might not be, but we'll see. He'll get
main event.
He'll get stuck in. He always does.
Main event Murphy will be there. Look, so I'll start. I was excited for the Yordan fight. To be honest, I thought that would have been a great fight, but for whatever reason, he's under doctor's orders to, he's been pulled out of the fight. Wyllie, it's his rocky moment. I think we had one of these. Kambosos had one himself. Obviously, he was at a higher level when he burst onto the scene, because whatever anybody says, he was not expected to win the fight. He wasn't
expected to beat Lee Selby when he fought Selby.
He wasn't, no, and he beat the brakes off Lee Selby. A lot of people forget about that. He punched Lee Selby from pillar to post and was a big reason behind Lee Selby calling it quits. But Kambosos has cornered the market for himself at home. He sells a lot of tickets. He puts on big shows, big promotion. There's a lot of pomp and ceremony involved. And this young fella's stepping up You know, and I don't mean that patronising him. It's just that I'm considerably older than a lot of them. Believe it or not, I'm 48 today. Believe it or not, guys. You know,
happy birthday to JFT.
I know it's hard to believe, but I'm not gonna lie. I'm 48, and I feel every fucking year of it. Please believe me.
Let's get some happy birthdays to JFT in the comments, guys.
Thanks, guys. No, look. Kambosos should beat him up. He should be able to beat him up for a couple of rounds and get him out of there 3, 4, 5 rounds. But we all know that when people are looking past, as you said, Sam, when you started, the Hitchens fight is a done deal. The ink is ready to be signed onto the contracts. If Kambosos takes his eye off the ball, as Tio did when he fought him, and you know, he could lose. I don't expect him to, but he could. He's got to be really careful. You know, this kid's not a mug. He's not a tin can. You know, he's the champion of Australia, which, you know, takes some doing. To be the champion of any country, takes some doing. To be the best.
Got some good fighters coming out of Australia, don't they now, to be fair?
Australasia as a whole, the Oceanic region has a lot of decent fighters coming through. They're a tough nation. There are tough people, and they're very similar to the UK. Obviously, they were colonised, etc. But I'm just talking about in the way they are. The tough, working class, blue collar people, a majority of them, but they are now getting some fighters that are getting on to the big shows, because there's been a bit of a lull. We had the likes of Solomon and Mundine years ago. Danny Green and Sonny Bill. Sonny Bill's still around, I think, but you know. Before Mundine, after Mundine and Solomon, there was a bit of a lull, and Kambosos is leading the charge for the Australians. You know, we've got Sky Nicholson as well, who's an established world champion, who's also on the undercard. And is it Terramona he's on it as well?
Liam Parrow. There's quite a few of them at the minute.
So I'm expecting Kambosos to do a number on this guy. But again, like you said, it's his rocky moment, and it's his chance to upset the apple cart. Would he get the Hitchens fight if he knocked out Kambosos? You never know, mate.
Well, that's it. Change your life. It's a world title eliminator, essentially. It's not officially, but it kind of is, isn't it? If you think about it,
I'm actually intrigued more by this fight than the Jordan fight.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
I pretty much knew Kambosos had beat Jordan, whereas I expect him to beat Wyllie, but there's more questions than answers for me at this point.
We're all cheering on the underdog.
There's jeopardy. That's what there is. The Jordan fight, you could pretty much, with 95% certainty, say you knew what was going to happen. With Wyllie, because we can find some clips of him, but we can't say we've seen him box. It adds that jeopardy to the fight. I mean, you've mentioned the Hitchens fight, mate. That fight is that done that Hitchens is in Australia already. He's going to be sitting with Eddie Hearn on Saturday night there. As good as got the announcement ready if it goes to plan. I think it's just... Kambosos done his, on the road thing. He went over to Australia. Went from Australia over to America to do what he needed to do against Haney. Then against Lopez, not Haney. And then he ended up in that weird contract where he had to fight in Tennessee against Maxie Hughes in a fight he didn't win before the Devin Haney situation. And he's just now trying to build himself back up. The better names are moving away from him now. The likes of Devin Haney, Tio Lopez, etc. They're moving on and up to 147. He's got one last chance at 140. Everyone says he became a champion. It was a fluke the first time. He's a limited opponent. He's a limited fighter, He gets exposed against a certain type of opponent, and we've seen that. Now the question is, with the better names moving on, I give him a good chance against Richardson Hitchens, because Hitchens isn't on the levels of your Devin Haney's, your Tio Lopez's, etc., etc. So it's all about him not slipping up on Saturday night and then possibly becoming a 2-time world champion, because that's why he's come back. That's why the money's been put into Australia for him to sign this big co-pro deal with Matchroom. It's all set up so he can have 3 or 4 fights down there and try and pick up 2 or 3 belts.
Yeah, just realised that we're mentioning all the Aussie fighters and none of us said Jai Alpataya. That was a bit silly of us. The one who's leading the way. Pat Scott Kambosos taking it in the mid-rounds. Dan's saying he can sniff a potential upset. He's very limited coming where Jay's coming from. And Dan, I agree with this. Probably the best managed career for me in recent times. But it was all based on that one win that you boys have just alluded to over Tio Lopez. That one win where Lopez had an off night. Kambosos has made a multi-million-dollar career off. And
him and his dad have manipulated one of the most difficult areas to navigate for yourself in terms of, you know, I've been on the inside and I've seen somebody turn over as an elite amateur and walk away from the game with nothing but a brain injury. I've also seen the flip side of that, where people like Crawler have turned his career into something fantastic, but it was all about the right fights at the right time. Kambosos got the fight, got the win, and then just ran with it. And you know, he has manipulated it at the game. He's clocked the game. Whatever happens after Saturday, he's clocked the game, man.
Mate, not only that, you boys have probably heard this story. So when Kambosos signed to fight Selby, his dad wouldn't let him sign the contract until Matchroom put a clause in saying, if he wins this fight, you have to promote my son when he gets his world title shot. That in itself, and Matchroom put it in because obviously they believed in Selby. Yeah.
Foresight.
And now they've done it. And look, he got the Lopez opportunity on a Matchroom won the purse bid, so Matchroom put on the show, and he's ran away with it. Yes, he was outclassed by Devin Haney twice, and we didn't need to see the rematch. Yes, you could argue that he lost to Maxie Hughes as well, if we're being really honest. That was a nice bit of Uncle Bob home cooking on a top rank card, but you get to where you get in boxing, and you have to maximise your moments when you get them.
And this is going to sound like I'm a hater, and I'm not, because I'm a fan of anybody that laces up. But he's done exceptionally well with a very limited skill set.
Yeah,
and
he's tough. He's very tough.
But he's got a very limited skill set. When he fights a proper boxer,
he's always going to get beat. He's always going to get beat.
Toughness gets him through. He's good. He's world class. He's not elite for me, but he's done exceptional. He has played the game to a T. If you could show a boxer what to do when you get opportunities and then what to do thereafter, I mean, don't get me wrong. If he hadn't been an Australian and had the Australian fans behind him, because they do get behind their own, you know, if it had been, I don't know, Irish or even English, he maybe wouldn't have got the paydays that he'd got because he wouldn't have had the backing and been able to fill a 60,000-seater stadium.
Yeah, he did the smartest thing with his career for me. He said yes to every opportunity that came his way. He's never once said no, but he was smart. The Devin Haney opportunity came up. He essentially, and obviously he went into the fight and he tried to win, but he sold his belts to the highest bidder, and in which was Devin Haney. Got a rematch clause on the back of it. Probably made over $10 million for the two Haney fights, and he's set for life. Sold out in Perth against Loma last time out, and he's built his name off the back of it. So yeah, credit to it. Antonio, what's up, brother? Hope you're well, my friend. And Jay's 100% correct. Dan says couldn't have put it better. There we go. Jay,
cheers, Dan.
On his birthday, spitting facts. Go on, Liam.
Thank you.
And Jay, you're absolutely right, and this is because we don't get this in Britain. And the best example we can give is the GAA and the Irish government not putting up the funds for Katie Taylor to get a Croke Park fight. The Australian government will put money up for their fighters no matter
Marvel
what.
Stadium, get it filled.
Marvel Stadium. They've done it for the UFC as well with Usman a couple of times. They've done it even for non-Australian fighters.
Did Haney not fight him in the Marvel Stadium?
Yep.
Yes.
Haney and Kambosos.
One was at first one was at Marvel Stadium. The second one was at the Rod Laver Arena where they do the tennis. Yeah. This is the thing. The government will put up the money, and they done it again for him against Loma. Even though he's on a losing streak, he's done nothing to justify the government putting up the money. They're happy to do it. And now they've done it again on a lesser extent. They've gone all in with Eddie said that he's got the Sydney government and Brisbane potentially for the Hitchens fight, putting up the money to make it a bigger event. It just shows you've got a country that wants to get behind you, and it only enhances the position you're in.
I mean, it shows you what, you know, collaboration between the government and one fighter can do, or one promotion. Because, look, Australian boxing, right, if it didn't have Kambosos, we wouldn't really be talking about Sky Nicholson. As good as she is, she gets most of her coverage boxing over here.
Opataya's the big one, isn't it,
from boxing over here. Opataya's the main guy. And you know, so Kambosos has single-handedly, well, I suppose single-handedly, but he has helped Australian boxing no end, absolutely no end. I believe that, you know, he's laid foundations that we'll be watching fights in 5 and 10 years that are coming off the back of foundations that Kambosos has laid over this period from 2020 to 26, 27 probably. It's fantastic what he's done, man.
Jay, you mentioned... Go on, Lynn.
So, mate, and you've got to remember the Brisbane government putting up the money to bring Manny Pacquiao over to fight Jeff Horn, close to 10 years ago now. Yeah. That's what spitballed it. Everyone looked at that and said, What, they're going to fight in Brisbane at a stadium? What do you mean? Okay, they made a massive mistake at doing it at 3:00 in the afternoon during a heat wave, and that gave fighters some trouble during that. But that was the ball rolling. Now
catalyst, wasn't it?
Yeah. And Kambosos has been a huge part in that. They want to do it with Opataya. You know for a fact if they can get a unification fight for Opataya in partnership with Riyadh Season down in Australia, they will absolutely do it. But like we said, it's what happens when a government actually want to work with fighters and, only help build a legacy, the complete opposite of what the Irish government are doing with Casey Taylor on these shores.
Yeah, I love it. Big up Bobby in the chat. Kambosos, one lucky guy, fast-tracked his career. Fair play. Yeah, love it. Boys, let's go to Sky then. Tiara Brown, she's defending a WBC featherweight championship of the world in the co-main. Look, it's been rumoured for a while. I think she's been mandatory for a while, Tiara Brown, to be fair. Look, on paper, Sky should have too much, but she is good, Tiara Brown. I've heard a lot of good noise coming out of people in the US about her. So do you think Sky's going to get a decent test on Saturday?
I'll let you go first, Liam.
We can hope so. I mean, you boys are in the camp of Raven Chapman was going to give her a good test out in October, but she just showed
Raven to beat her.
She showed that her boxing skills are a level up, if that makes sense. And I think this is another situation again. Sky Nicholson has it all. What she done as an amateur and what she's slowly starting to transfer into the pros is almost at the level she's been at the moment untouchable. And now you're bringing in a puncher with an even better record than what Raven Chapman had. What is it, 11 KOs Brown's got, Sam?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's 11 stoppages, so that should pose a test to Sky Nicholson. But I don't even think that's going to phase her in the slightest. She has ultimate belief in her boxing skills and that she can do enough to nullify any opponent she's in with. I mean, I'd love it to be a test. I'd love us to be watching it and saying we're getting questions answered about Sky, but a 10-0 shutout is kind of the camp I'm in seeing it. My only caveat is I know she trains with Eddie Lamb and Bradley Ski, and they're based in the UK. She was at the Albert Hall, 2 weeks ago on Friday? Yeah. I do wonder at some point, she burns the candles at both ends. She's making a name for herself broadcasting. She's obviously an established fighter. I just hope she hasn't overlooked Brown because this is, again, her first professional fight in Australia. We don't want to see her stumble at the big moment because there's big opportunities for her as well.
Yeah, for sure. That boxer, Jay, what do you think?
I agree. I mean, I've watched Tiara and she's decent. She punches pretty hard, but I think Sky's lucky. You find the odd boxer that can continue very similar to the amateur style, and it carries them in good stead on the pro game. Normally,
the 2-minute rounds help, don't they? I think as well.
So normally, they've got to adapt it and evolve it. Sky's style's pretty similar to when you're an amateur. She just boxes at range, keeps them at arm's length, in and out, combinations and moves. You always say it, every fight, rinse and repeat. Once you've seen first 2 rounds, you can just replicate. And I expect her to maybe come through some choppy waters mid-fight, maybe take a bat, but she can take a good shot. She seems to hold a decent shot. Chapman clocked her a couple of times and never really made her take a backward step. And I see her winning 8-2, 7-3, something like that. I'd be surprised if she lost. I'd
be surprised as well.
I think we've reached a point with Sky, though, and again, it comes down to the talent pool in female boxing, where we're actually crying out to see her tested, and we're clutching at straws a bit, saying that Brown's KO record, maybe she's going to land. But as Jay's just said, Sky has taken solid punches, not just from Raven in her last fight, but the Mexican girl she beat for the interim belt at the time clocked her a couple of times early in the fight, and she came through that as well. She just seems to be able to answer tests. And yes, a 20-minute performance from Sky looks very similar from minute 1 to minute 20. But when it's efficient and dominant and ultimately is getting the job done, then that's all you need to do.
Can I mean, she's not in this vein, but box is very similar. Mayweather, we knew what were going to happen in it pretty much every single one of his fights. He's going to download the data in the first couple of rounds. He may take a couple of bangs like he did against Maidana and people like that, Castillo, but
Connor with the left hand.
She's not going to get anywhere near her. She's got first. I mean, she needs to go all out for the first 6 minutes if she thinks she's going to stop her, because that's the best chance, is catching Sky unaware. I hate using the term catching them cold because she should be warm and warmed up. But catching her unawares maybe and jumping on her is probably her best shot. if she gives Sky any chance of getting into a rhythm, it's done. She's done out there because Sky is too professional. She's too clinical. And as you said, Sam, it's 2-minute rounds. By the time Brown sees a space, bell's gone. Next round. So I just see Sky being too cute for her.
Sky has a habit of landing jabs within the first 5 seconds of round starting, and then that's her in her rhythm. Her opponent almost can't get set, and we've seen it time and time again. The 2-minute rounds are a big factor, but at the same time, you could say that to the detriment of Sky as well. The way she breaks fighters down, you could argue with 3-minute rounds, there might be a couple of stoppages on her record, if that makes sense. So yes, the 2-minute rounds complement her style. She probably fights at a quicker pace than she would do over 3 minutes, but they're probably why we can say that her fights are, to Queen Sam, rinse and repeat, because there's not enough time for her to get the stoppages, if that makes sense. Look, she's an exciting fighter, and she's going to get the opportunities out in Australia off the back of Kambosos, Opataya, etc. on their undercards. She probably won't get a main event, but will she care if she's co-main on, say, 2 or 3 of these a year?
I'd say, well, it's not the most exciting thing in the world, as Pat said here, relating it to Shakur Stevenson. I do see the parallels there, Pat, absolutely. Shanika Johnson and Nina Hughes will run it back. Obviously, highly controversial. The wrong winner being read out at the time in the first one. That's for the WBA Bantamweight Championship. Tera Moana's also continuing his journey as well on the undercard. Elsewhere, we've got World Championship action in Vegas. PBC card, you've got Sebastian Fundora against Chordale Booker. 2 belts on the line at 154, WBC and WBO, if I'm correct there. Any thoughts on that one, boys?
It's nice to see Fundora back, 350
was Spence. It was always Spence for a bit, wasn't it? And then that fell off.
Mate, Spence is a weird one, and me and Jay said on Straight Talk last week, the injuries he's got with his eyes, it wouldn't surprise me if that's having an impact on him not getting a license in some way.
Possibly.
Because we know he's got issues. Look, Fundora, it's been 350 odd days since he beat Tim Tszyu. He's been out through injury first of all, and then obviously the Spence negotiations. Look, you've got 2 belts at 154 where Terence Crawford and other big names are. Yeah, it's time to.
Thurman.
Yeah, that'd be a
good
good fight.
For us. Do us a favour. Get rid of him, Sebastian. Get rid of Thurman one time.
The winner of Tszyu and Thurman will fight Fundora, probably. Keep it in-house, PBC.
Yeah.
And as we saw with the Tszyu fights, Sebastian Fundora being as tall as he is and being as gangly as he is with his limbs can be a massive factor for him in fights at 154. I mean, that Tim Tszyu fight was a very messy fight and was punctuated by how bad cuts they both suffered. So he uses that to his advantage and he'll win this fight. I mean, the only thing is, will Ring Rust play a part? He's had nearly a year out of the ring. Again, possibly clutching at straws, hoping we might get a competitive fight. But it's good to see 2 of these belts finally back on the line after nearly a year.
Yeah, I think Armo's his only defeat, Chordale Booker, off the top of my head.
Yeah, I
looked at it the other day. I think Armo had a good win last weekend, to be fair to him.
It's right then, I guess. Mate, so let's take the positive there as well.
What's that? Sorry, mate.
It's not a pay-per-view card. It's just a part of your Amazon subscription. So let's take the positive. It's accessible to everyone.
Yeah, fair play to him, but at the same time, it would have probably done 3 buys. If it was on pay-per-view in the UK, I think Fundora against Booker. So, look. Right then, yesterday it was announced that the Canelo undercard, was announced. We knew about Munguia and Saras, didn't we? The rematch that's been rumoured for a while. Jabba and Bacoli's formally announced as well. Marco Verdi's on the card as well. I noticed. Obviously, he beat our guy. What was his name again in the Olympics? Richardson.
Yeah.
He beat him in the Olympics. I don't know if that means he's signed with a promoter, because I'm pretty sure it's his debut, isn't it? But any thoughts on the undercard, boys? Underwhelmed, overwhelmed?
It's a basic undercard, really. I mean, I wouldn't say I'm underwhelmed, but I'm not overjoyed with it. It's solid. It's solid, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's a good card. You know, Jagba Bacoli, Munguia, Saras. Obviously, that wouldn't have been a good fight unless we'd seen it already. Now it's an interesting fight. It's not bad.
Badu Jack's fighting, isn't he?
Jack's on it. The WBC Cruiserweight belt on the line as well. Yeah, forgot about that one.
Look, it's a better card than we would get for a Canelo main event in Vegas.
Normally it's just Canelo and then just some, Mexican
last
fighters
time
on
it
the
was
undercard.
Danny Garcia against Lara was the co-main event for Canelo Berlanga.
And I'm pretty sure Liam picked Danny Garcia.
I did pick Danny Garcia. Mate,
yeah, he did.
Mate, I'll die on that hill.
The resurrection of Danny Garcia.
It's better. It's better than we would get if this was a Vegas card.
Yeah.
I mean, look, they're bringing Baddy Jack out. You know why Turkey's doing that, because he wants to give Baddy Jack swap attire to come the back end of the year on a Riyadh season card. So he hasn't fought since he won this belt against Maccabi, won the flipping Tommy Fury, Jake Paul circus. So that shows how long it's been since he's fought.
That was a long time ago.
Munguia Serace. I mean, Munguia, we're going to find out.
I think he'll get beat again, me.
Mate, career's in tatters if he loses again.
Yeah.
And Bukolia Jagba, I mean, we know Bukoli's already training. We've seen the videos out of the gym today. So he's actually, Billy's got him in Scotland.
I've seen him doing 3 tipple tails. That's about all I've seen of Martin Bukolia.
There's a bit of him on pads as well, mate.
I've seen 2 videos from Martin Bukolia this week. One was dropping his kids at school. And the second one was him doing tipple tails in the ring. So, yeah, he's active.
He's back.
Wait, that's more than he done before he fought Parker, so come on.
Yeah,
but
true.
No, it's something, isn't it? And look, it's a Canelo main event, so that's what you're selling it on. But bearing in mind it's a Saudi card, and we know they're doing it for an American audience, that is going to be a slight slog for us here in the UK. And the other thing I will say could be another thing that's going to drain an audience, 2 pay-per-views in 2 nights. We know the Times Square shows pay-per-view on the Friday. Look, I'd be very surprised if Turkey says this is free to wear on the Saturday.
I'd be gobsmacked, Lynn.
You know what? And this, look, a marketing hat on here, and Jay probably agree with me. Do the pay-per-views the Friday and the Saturday at one price. That's the best way you're going to get a crowd in. If you buy the Friday, you get the Saturday.
You get Saturday for heavily discounted or something.
You've got to do something because
they'll do that one. They're
going to have to because
people
can't afford it. You're putting too many paywalls up, and people.
It's a lot in the UK as well because they're all both on in the middle of the night. You're asking UK fans to pay to
stay up at 3 a.m.
You've got look, Friday night's Ring Magazine, Saturday night's Riyadh season. They're both Turkey. They can work something out. I mean, the only blessing is Inoue Sunday is only on Sky Sports over it. That's definitely not pay-per-view. So we know one of the 3 we're not having to pay any extra for over it. It's just, look, this Turkey thing's great. And I've seen a lot of, I'm sure we've all seen it, the comments of where does this undercard rank in terms of what Turkey's done since coming into boxing. What you've got to remember is you've got to sometimes make the fights to set up the big fights. So some of the fights we're seeing this weekend is to set up bigger fights later in the year. And I'd rather see them all on one card and get them all out of the way than have them dragged out. It's 5 or 6 main events over 2 months. So you win some, you lose some. It's not the worst card in the world, but equally it's probably a step down. Well, it's definitely a step down from February.
It's not a great it's not a pay-per-view card for me. I don't believe it's I mean, I know it is a pay-per-view card. What I'm saying is it's not a pay-per-view I will be clambering to buy. Obviously, I will buy it because we'll be working it. But I don't know many people that will buy that card to sit up between 3 and 6 a.m. And we're lucky we only pay 25 quid. The American audience are paying $70, $80, which is a fucking lot of money, especially if you've got to buy 2 over 2 nights. It's not been thought out well.
Look, we can't look, and as Brits, we can't moan because all these red season cards have been on our time. So the fact this is the first one that's kind of going against us, it is what it is. It's to see Canelo. It's always good to see Canelo, and for what it's worth, he's going to become an undisputed champion twice, isn't he? Because I can't see Skull giving him much trouble. It's a step down from Berlanga and Munguia and Charlo. That's really honest.
Look, Canelo's what now? 35?
Yeah.
It's got to start slowing down at some point. And the fights that we expect him to win, these will be one of the fights where he slips up because he's running out of options, isn't he? He's avoiding everybody he can that are going to give him the real test. And he's taking fights for unifications. Skull is good. I don't think he's great, but If Canelo's not on it, again, as I've said with Kambosos, slightly different because Skull is a world champion in his own right. But Canelo's looking past him. Canelo's just looking at the pomp and ceremony for coming a 2-time unified undisputed champion. He's got to be on it because I could see him losing like he did against Bivol. Just get him outboxed if he's not careful. Because Skull, even though he's a world champion, not a lot of people know a lot about him. Do you get what I mean?
He's an unknown entity, isn't he?
Unknown entity.
That last fight wasn't much use against Shiskin.
I've done my own research. All his fights are online. They're not. You know, his last world title defense, nobody watched it.
It was on his own, but it didn't get the audience. No, look, at some point there's going to be a challenger that beats Canelo. And it could be Skull, but everything is geared up towards it being a coronation for Canelo, and then you get Allegiant Stadium.
If Skull chins Canelo, it'll be 115, 113 to Canelo on all 3 cards.
As they're carrying him out of the arena, oxygen mask on. You want on point, Saul?
Yeah. Turkey will get in the ring and just grab him, throw him up.
Ripping up the scorecards and that. Lift his hand up, lift his hand up.
Yeah.
But whilst we're on that weekend, boys, what for a bank holiday weekend for us in the UK, how about it? You got Friday night Times Square, you got this card on the Saturday, and then you got a Niue on the Sunday. I mean,
nice.
You're getting all the fighters you kind of want to see. Okay, maybe not the best cards, but you're getting all the fighters you want to see.
Can't argue with a hat trick of boxing. Yeah, I love the Murtaz Aliyev fight, Dan. Definitely, I want to see that. Pat saying no way we'll be up at that time for Canelo. They said something that Canelo fight was free on DAZN. Okay, that'd be interesting. Big up, Luca. Hope you well, mate. Definitely a hard sell for us, and American pay-per-view is in line with UK.
Right.
Turkey's promised it, hasn't he? He's done it for a couple. Let's see if he,
the better be able was like $25, wasn't it, or something like that?
Yeah.
Just quickly then, boys, before we wrap up, Hrgovic is now fighting Joyce, and Moses is on the card. Obviously, Okoli's out of the Riakporhe fight. Frank's kickoff on DAZN took a bit of a hit, but obviously, Moses' fight is what it is. But Joyce Hrgovic, it's possible, Dan. I'm more leaning towards that theory now. I was big on, these guys know I was massive on Canelo knocking out Terence, but I'm not so sure now. But Hrgovic then, boys, what do we think?
End of Joe Joyce's career.
Yeah, Joe Joyce is he's I'd have liked to have seen him retire previously. I just using his head as a shield is not a tactic that bodes well in any weight division. Certainly at heavyweight, we've seen the likes of Dave Allen, albeit to a lesser level, get punched around and now he's on the comeback. Joe Joyce has done it at a higher level and was found out once he jumped up a couple of. They said it was an anomaly, and then Zhang did it to him again, even easier and more brutal. I think Hrgovic is going to have a point to prove. People said, he got busted up against Dubois. He did in terms of cuts, but he was winning that fight until he wasn't. I think he's going to make a real statement against Joe Joyce, and I see him stopping Joe mid rounds.
Yeah, it wouldn't surprise me, mate, to be honest with you. I think I'm with you on it.
I think Joe's too slow for him. Hrgovic is one of the faster heavyweights because he's light, isn't he?
Yeah, look, Hrgovic is being wrote off now, but people need to remember he's having tremendous success against Dubois early in that fight. His only career defeat is to Dubois.
Before that fight, Hrgovic was in the
position. Next coming? Yeah,
he was in the position that Caballe's in now.
Yep.
Do you know what I'm saying? So people are quick to forget. We are fickle as boxing fans. We have the recency bias, but us three as educated boxing fans, and I use that term lightly and flippantly, more aimed at myself. But what I mean is people that watch boxing day in, day out, watch fight sports day in, day out, know about Filip Hrgovic. Filip Hrgovic is a fucking problem. And he got stopped on cuts. He didn't get stopped because his legs went.
Yeah, he was still on his feet.
He was still on his feet.
Took the shots that Joshua couldn't
see. His flipping eye was,
split, yeah.
I expect him to beat Joe Joyce and come back with a proverbial bang.
Look, let's get this right. Joe Joyce should have retired after Zhang, and he sure as hell should have retired after Chisora beat him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But he hasn't. So here we are. 8 months down the line from the Chisora fight, and it's another fight week. The Dillian White fight, for me, he probably would have beaten Dillian White, but all it would have done is paper over the cracks, and then they would have given him a Hrgovic or a Moses or someone like that.
I don't think he would. I think
it would have been interesting. I think it was a 50-50.
I think Dillian looked shit in his last fight, but he were out of condition. And I just think Dillian can keep going, whereas Joe hits a brick wall. Yeah. I think Dillian had stopped him, but we'll never know, will we?
That was a more evenly matched fight, mate. Whereas this one, unless losing to Dubois, and then obviously the comeback from that has completely made all his love for the game go. For me, this is an 80-20 fight in his favour. And I don't, I'm going against the Brit massively here, which is really out of character, but we've got to be honest. Filip Hrgovic was stopped, like Jay just said, because his flipping eyelid was hanging off against Dubois. Not because he got knocked out or because he couldn't take any more, because the doctor done for a change. A doctor jumped in at the right time rather than not doing enough or jumping in prematurely. That's the reality. He's had nearly a year out the ring. If he still loves boxing, if he still has that belief that he can become a world champion, he's coming to Manchester to make a statement against Joe Joyce. There's Hrgovic is a free agent. Eddie Hearn didn't take his rights on Hrgovic after
anything to do with him after Dubois stopped him.
So he's a free agent. So he beats Joe Joyce. You guarantee Frank will show him some love for a bit of the turkey money out in Saudi.
To be fair to Eddie on Hrgovic, though, he's not a big name, and he's a guy who would demand a big purse. So the business probably isn't great on Hrgovic, if you know what I mean.
I wasn't dropping Eddie in it at all, but I was just making a point. He's a free agent, so he's fighting for a win, but he's fighting for Frank to show him some love as well, because Frank will pick him up if he beats Joyce.
Oh, yeah. Frank's got work for him, though, hasn't he, at the end of the day?
He picks up Zhang after Zhang beat Joyce, so he's definitely going to pick up.
Yeah, there'll be options all over the place on him, that's for sure. Do you see Baumgartner signed up with MVP? Jeez, I didn't see that, no.
Yeah, mate, they've done a big announcement earlier today, a proper...
Really?
Yeah, big.
No, I didn't see that.
Look, there's been a rumour that this is going to be happening for a long time.
Drug cheat. Boo.
You can have opinions on Baumgartner. She's not my cup of tea, even without all the drug stuff coming around. Look, MVP wants to make waves, and you know the narrative that Jake Paul's going to push now. Look at us. We've been able to offer X amount of money to get a former...
Doing the bench salon. We'll get all the female fighters and pay them record purses.
Yeah. Look, good luck to her. But as she wasn't my cup of tea even without the drug stuff going around, and she's now moved over to my least favourite promotional outfit because it's got Jake Paul attached to it, so it just doesn't really sit right with me, if I'm being honest. Who's she going to fight over there? Because then, as we see...
Who else have they got? Serrano.
As we've seen with the Serrano and Taylor business, they don't like letting their fighters go elsewhere, and they don't like it when they don't get their own way. So I don't see who she fights now she's gone over there.
I don't.
Lucas said Jake wants tips on PEDs.
Yeah, probably.
God's sake.
I'm inclined to agree with you there, Dan. I think it's got 4 or 6 rounds written all over it. Just a quick one. We're talking about announcements. Does anybody know what Callum Smith's announcement was about this afternoon? Because I'm none the wiser.
What was it about?
Well, apparently, there's potentially, possibly, maybe, might be, could be a chance that he might possibly, maybe, could be a chance fights at Anfield. Possibly, maybe.
He would possibly love to if offered. I could, yeah.
But it's a small window of opportunity, so he possibly, maybe has to do it fairly quickly, but there's nothing announced.
There you go. Frank signed Hrgovic.
There you go.
Yeah, that Cash Alley fight was awful.
It was, mate. He should have definitely fight after that.
Yeah, Hrgovic will flatten him. Yeah, I'm with you.
Going back to that Callum Smith thing, so Sky do their boxing thing on Sky every week, and whoever's in there does the toe-to-toe podcast as well, as we all know.
Yeah,
it's almost as if Sky's social media admin got carried away, and that Callum Smith was in the studio and just decided to say, "Oh my God, you're not going to miss what he's going to say," because he was just going over his fight.
We laughed about it. We laughed about it and said, "Oh, it'd be like when Chris Eubank did it." But at least Chris Eubank sort of announced something.
At least he had a hit list.
Yeah, and with Callum, it wouldn't have been so bad if they didn't announce, stay tuned this afternoon, Callum's, and then he didn't say it. It was just like an interview.
Oh, bizarre. Yeah, I remember Luca. Yeah, he loved it up in the Dubois build-up.
This is the thing, though. Like Callum said multiple times, well, I've got to talk to my team, which is Matchroom. He was making it very clear that his team's Matchroom, and obviously he's probably been told, don't mention Matchroom and Eddie on Sky. That's not our our goose anymore. So he's probably sitting there almost going, I don't know what you're expecting me to say here. If you think I'm giving
there was nothing. There was absolutely nothing to it. I was waiting for the announcement. I mean, even Sky, their headlines, it says Smith reveals next targets after Buatsi Thriller. He didn't. He just said he'd like to fight one of the champions. He's got an interim title, so he'd like to have a unification match if he can.
I'd like to fight one of the champions, or if I get maybe get upgraded, which he knows is a possibility that could happen, then he'll do it. Yeah, it was a weird one. Sky doing clickbait, which is unfortunately something Sky are falling more and more into.
They sold us down the road anyway. We were all over it.
Yep.
Not much on the schedule. Dan, I'll throw this one to you boys. Bobby's asked about Dalton's next opponent.
Rubbish.
Yeah, Dalton's last few have been underwhelming, haven't they? To be honest, do you know
what's going to end up with Dalton Smith's going to end up like Jack Catterall. He's going to end up getting it. No one's going to want to fight him, and then he's going to end up getting his big night at home in Sheffield, and he'll get beat if he's not careful. They shouldn't be messing around now. The Azim fight's further away than it ever was, so he needs to be. Look, 2 months ago they were saying he'll be ringside in the States and he'll fight the winner. They've never mentioned it since. They said he'd fight Puello, didn't they?
Puello's not coming to Sheffield. I'll tell you that for free.
No chance.
Well, Puello's with PBC. PBC ain't sending them. They'll send them to Saudi like they did Adames because it makes a fortune, but they ain't sending them to Sheffield on a matchroom show. No chance.
No, I'm gutted because I think Dalton's better than that. I think he's being mismanaged at the minute. I do. I really think he's being mismanaged at the minute.
I said this when this was announced and we spoke about it briefly. I said, it's all well and good wanting to stay active because he's had a couple of injury-disrupted years. We all get that. But at the same time, there's taking too many unnecessary risks. Now, you get why he done it for the European belt because he wanted to complete the set of British, Commonwealth, European. Absolutely.
Move up now.
That. Yep. This fight does absolutely nothing other than sells out the 2,500 Cannon Medical Arena.
And risks your world title shot if you lose.
Risks his number one ranking. Risks a massive payday because, like you just said, Sam, he's going to have to go to Saudi to fight Puello or go to a PBC show. The likelihood is it lands on a Saudi card. It's worse for me than Jack Catterall because at least Jack Catterall was fighting.
Trying.
He was. Yeah,
he done the Taylor rematch. Good fights. Yeah, I agree on that.
Done the Taylor
rematch. What I meant more of is he's going to end up getting frozen out.
No, I agree with you, mate. And that's his danger now. That Puello being the champion and being with PBC is almost the worst possible news for Dalton and Matchroom because we know they can manipulate a belt in-house for years and years. He's worked so hard to get to the number one, and he's possibly in a worse position than before he was number one because of where that belt is. Yeah. He doesn't want to slip up on Easter Saturday. And because this opponent is such a step down again, and he goes, for God's sake, I've just gone through a Sazi and now you're making me do this. He could slip up, mate, like you say, and it would be a bigger shock him slipping up than Jack, because at least Jack slips up to someone
a world title shot.
Yeah.
We'll see against Teo.
Oh, yeah.
I'm not sure, Luca, who I think wins that one. I think it's a 50-50. That I couldn't categorically say Dalton or Jack wins that fight.
It comes back to recency bias, mate, doesn't it? I mean, Jack Catterall all of a sudden was being fed to someone like Dalton Smith, whereas if he beat Barbosa, we'd all be saying he beats Dalton.
The best in the world. Yeah, it is recency bias, definitely. Any other topics, boys, to bring up before we round off?
Not for me. We've covered most of
it. The Baumgartner thing was the other thing we had on. It's the last weekend like this, and then it's a bit of a grudge weekend the next weekend, isn't it? With the Mayer Ryan fight and
looking forward to that.
And then it gets big, mate, and then we are into April where it's decent cards every weekend, and then May's already starting to shape up as well. It's hang in there. But we know our eyes are mainly on the UFC this weekend. So that's the reality. We're looking forward to not being awake at 5 a.m. for a UFC card the first time of the year.
Can't argue with that. Constantly mess around, giving them one. That's it. You always run the risk, Dan, don't you? There you go. KSI. We're just talking about that. Darren Till's on it as well, Dan. Yeah, no doubt I'll get roped into watching this. No recency bias. Jack's never shown enough urgency to pressure. Even Taylor Catterall wanted to force the issue a lot more. Yeah, don't think you're being too unfair there, Luca, to be fair. But And like Jack and Dalton's not happening, is it? To be honest, but yeah, I could probably lean towards Dalton personally right now. But again, I want to see him fight some better opposition before I make a proper call on it. But yeah, look, we'll be back tomorrow for our predictions for this weekend. We'll do Kambosos, Sky, and Fundora. So catch us there for that. Big up to Luca, Dan Evans, Bobby, DJ Pat. Who else been with us? Antonio, the Mad Mitch TV, Humble Apple Crumble, all the regular watchers. We do appreciate it. We'll be doing the watch along on Saturday morning for this one. Probably won't do Fundora, to be honest, but we've got loads of other stuff coming up. Jay's being asked if he is a Misfits down now. Oh, I love it, Luca. Sandy looks sharp. Yeah, can't wait. Pat and the new. Come on, Sandy.
Yep.
Agreed.
Are you touting Misfits, Jay?
No, not scalping them. Somebody at work, daughter bought them, and he's asked me if I could sell them. It's not something I don't tout.
Luca, the cat's out the bag. He's fighting on the next card, but the announcement hasn't been made yet, so they're giving him a few comps just to keep him.
They can't afford me, mate. The amount of money it takes for me to fight someone is unreal. I've enough of my own. I don't need.
I thought you and the Prince were getting it on the next.
Prince Patel ain't got the balls to fight me.
Oh, I love it.
And
big up to everybody. Big up to Jay and Liam.
Thanks, man.
Hashtag Murphy Patel for the next Misfits. You heard it here first. Have a great evening, everybody, and we'll see you next time. Take care, guys.
Thank you.
It was.